Working hard isn't enough. And for a lot of people, it's actually the reason they stay stuck. If you're watching this, you've probably already thought about improving your life in some way. You might be trying to be more productive, thinking about your future, or just feeling like you want something more than the average path. But at the same time, there's this feeling that things aren't really moving as fast as they should. You put in effort, you try to stay consistent, and you keep yourself busy, but the results don't always reflect that. After a while, that becomes frustrating because it feels like you're doing everything right, yet nothing is really changing. The problem usually isn't a lack of effort. Most people are willing to work. They're willing to try, to improve, to stay disciplined. The real issue is that effort alone doesn't guarantee progress. You can spend a long time working hard and still end up in the same place if what you're working on isn't actually leading anywhere. That's a much harder problem to notice because working hard feels productive. It gives you the sense that you're doing something meaningful. But if you never stop to question the direction of your effort, it's easy to confuse movement with progress. A lot of people fall into a pattern where they're constantly doing things, but those things don't build on each other. They wake up, complete tasks, stay busy throughout the day, and repeat the same cycle again tomorrow. There's effort, but there's no accumulation. Nothing is really stacking over time. And that's where the difference starts to show. The people who move forward faster aren't always working harder than everyone else. In many cases, they're just more aware of what they're working on. They take a step back and ask whether their actions are actually leading somewhere, or if they're just repeating the same effort without thinking about the outcome. One way to understand this better is to think about how small decisions play out over time. If you make one smart decision today, it probably won't change your life. The same is true for tomorrow and the day after that. Each individual action feels small, almost insignificant. It's easy to underestimate it, or even ignore it completely. But those decisions don't exist in isolation. If you choose to learn something useful today, you're slightly more capable tomorrow. If you improve a skill, even a little, that improvement carries forward. If you create something, you now have something that didn't exist before. And when you repeat that process consistently, those small actions begin to stack. At first, the progress is almost invisible. After a week, it doesn't feel like much has changed. Even after a month, the difference might still be small, but over longer periods of time, that stacking effect becomes very real. What started as small, almost unnoticeable decisions turns into actual progress. Skills improve, understanding deepens, and things that once felt difficult start to feel more natural. Eventually, you reach a point where you're no longer where you started, and the gap becomes obvious. Now compare that to working hard without thinking about direction. You can still put in hours every day. You can still stay busy, follow routines, and feel like you're being productive. But if your actions don't connect to something that builds over time, there's no stacking effect. Each day stands on its own, and once it's over, you're back where you started. That's where a lot of people get stuck without realizing it. They're not lazy, and they're not avoiding effort. They're just putting their energy into things that don't carry forward. This is something I've been starting to notice even in what I'm doing right now. When I work on a video, it's not just about uploading something and moving on. Each time I do it, I'm getting slightly better at explaining ideas, slightly better at editing, and slightly better at understanding what actually connects with people. Even something as simple as posting consistently or trying to improve one small aspect each time starts to build over time, and the same thing applies to the people watching. Even if it's a small number right now, it's still the beginning of something that can grow. A few people paying attention, thinking about the same ideas, and improving alongside the process. That's how something meaningful starts. None of that happens from one big moment. It comes from small improvements that stack over time. And that's really the difference most people don't see. Two people can both be working hard, putting in similar amounts of effort, but if one is making small, intentional decisions that build on each other, while the other is just repeating the same actions, their results will eventually look completely different. If you think about your own situation, you can probably recognize this in some way. There are things you're doing that actually move you forward, even if it's slow. And there are other things that just fill your time without really changing anything. The challenge is being able to tell the difference, because it's not always obvious in the moment. Hard work is still important, but it only works when it's combined with the right direction. Without that, it turns into repetition instead of progress. At some point, the focus has to shift. Instead of only asking how to work harder, it becomes more important to ask what's actually worth working on. Because over time, the results you get aren't just based on how much effort you put in. They're based on whether that effort is stacking in your favor or not.